What's happening, everybody? Trey here, joined by my dad, Sean, and today, reactions to the classics. We are up to 1982 in our top 5 albums by year draft. And man, it's been fun. Started at 65, making our way year by year. We got some big records to tackle here in 1982. But before we get into that, a little bit of the format of this draft.
Yeah, the way the draft works is one of us gets first pick. This time it's you. And I get picks 2 and 3, you get 4 and 5. And I say this depending on how loaded the year is, 1 is great if it's a weak year. Mm-hmm. You don't want 1 if it's a great year because you get those next 2 albums and it really makes a difference. So we're going to ask you to participate at the end. Let us know who you think won and let us know your top 5 albums. Trey, we're getting to the point where I turned 11 years old during this year, and I was a music freak when I was that age. But you got to remember, boys and girls, we didn't have Spotify or Apple Music. We just had popular radio. So a lot of our albums that appear on these I never heard any of the songs off of because a lot of them, not your first pick, but your second pick, never heard anything off them. So you got to kind of dig back in through. So even though I was alive during this time, and some of these albums I'm really going to have a lot of memories and be able to share stuff with you guys, and some I will have never heard. But all that aside, Trey, a guy who I became a big fan of in 1982 with this album, what you got?
Yeah, kicking it off with Prince, man, 1999. His first top 10 record, a double album epic, man. Kicks off with the title track and Little Red Corvette. I mean, what a 1-2 punch that
exactly.
is. You mentioned Controversy in 1981, even Dirty Mind in 1980. It just shows that he's continuing to elevate with each
so much talent.
Early records, man. You have DMSR, which is a long jam that just makes you want to get up and dance and groove. Love the rhythms on this album, and just have impressive synths and drum machines throughout. And Lady Cab Driver on that last side is pretty underrated as well. But man, love me some Prince, and I think for a lot of people it'll be between my number 1 pick and your number 1 pick for what do they have as the top dog.
Yeah, and just for the record, I would have taken your number 1 pick first, which is going to be controversial with everybody. My number 1 pick is kind of it's strange. It needs to be pick number 1 for me. Yet, I don't think it's this guy's best album. And I think as times went on, it's vastly overrated, even though it's a really good album. I got Thriller, Michael Jackson, 6th studio album. You wanted to create an album, Trey, where they're all singles, where every song was a killer. Even though his previous album, Off the Wall in 79, had 4 top 10 singles. First artist to ever have 4 top 10 singles off of an album. Go and here we go. We got 7 top 10 singles.
Ridiculous,
on this.
Man.
His first number 1, which is crazy. Quincy Jones is back, but his number 1 for 37 weeks. And let me tell you something.
Astronomical.
Like, the album charts were a bloodbath back then. It was very difficult. This guy just posts up for 37 weeks. If you went back and looked, I'm not going to bore you, but the amount of albums he kept from number 1 because of this album, like all these poor people never
released
got
anything in this. Sorry, y'all.
So I don't know about the 70 million copies worldwide because you see all these vastly different things. But number 1 in the U.S. in 83 and 84. First album to ever be the number 1 selling album in 2 different years. 8 Grammys. Billie Jean, Thriller for me are the top picks off here. There's a lot, we always love the This Girl Is Mine with Paul. And
That's right, PYT, fantastic.
The verbal going back and forth. I will say this. He had the record for 7 top 10 singles, shared with Springsteen, Madonna. But Drake broke that record with 9 in 2021. Just another travesty in the music world. Sorry, Drake fans. All right, my number 2 pick, a guy that I love, but an album that's definitely not accessible. And you might listen to it and go, you're out of your mind, Sean. But Nebraska, Bruce Springsteen, got an album reaction up of this courtesy of our patron, Rich. 5th studio album, but it sounds way different. And I got to tell you a story, guys. Born in the USA that comes a couple years later, made me a huge Springsteen fan. So little Sean's like, you know what? I'm going to order his last album from Columbia House on the cassettes. And I get this and I pop Nebraska in and I'm like, wait a minute. What's going on?
Yeah, where's the electric guitar?
I listened to it one time and I would guess my 13-year-old self in 84 probably didn't make it through the whole album. So I probably didn't listen to all of it. But 5th studio album recorded as demos on a 4-track. So he's doing them in his house because he said he used to go into the studio and finish a lot of his songs. He didn't want to do that, so he's doing them ahead of time. He didn't even tour because of the somber tone of it. But he originally went into the studio and said, we're going to do this with the E Street Band. He brings them in, and they just didn't like how it turned out.
Yeah.
So he's like, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to just record, or we're just going to release it on the demos. Very difficult in 1982 with technology to release this. A lot of them they couldn't hear. They almost had to just release it on cassette because when the vinyl got pressed down, you couldn't hear it very well. Atlantic City, Johnny 99, Highway Patrolman, My Father's House, a very underrated classic that you've seen Springsteen on Broadway. One of the most powerful performances he does in that is that. So there you go. That's too much Springsteen, but I know a lot about Springsteen, so buckle up.
We're here for it, man. No, I do enjoy that pick, man. It just shows that the different side of Bruce,
yes,
you know, kind of
definitely different.
Sandwich between, you know, the river and Born in the USA. But for me, man, I'm going with XTX, English Settlement, their 5th record, man, double album. So keeping up with that for the first 2 for me. Shows a bit more variety of sound of the group, though nothing reaches into, you know, kind of the truly experimental to like alienate people. So they kind of balance that.
Gotta walk the line.
Quite well. Quite enjoy No Thugs in Our House. All of a Sudden It's Too Late. The synth-laden Fly on the Wall, Ball and Chain highlight the impressive and really catchy nature of the group, and a group that I know is beloved, especially in the UK.
I was going to say huge following. Yes.
So I hadn't really listened to their stuff until doing this series and kind of going through, and yeah, this has been my favorite of theirs I've heard up to this point, man. So excited to dive more into their catalog. And another group that appeared on your list last year, it's going to be The Cure, Pornography. I think this is a big step up from you know, kind of their previous work. Really a mature record. It shows them pushing more into that post-punk gothic rock sound. Still, we have a track like A Strange Day. It shows that they can still pull off that style while writing catchy hooks. Love the drums by Lowell on this one. Guitar work by Robert Smith are on peak form in the whole record. And you have one of their most famous tracks, most acclaimed rather, in 100 Years.
Yes.
That's on here. You know, really, this is The Cure at their most kind of atmospheric for at least a while, until we get to Disintegration, in my opinion, at the end of the decade.
Now, Trevor, we're going to go to a band that I hadn't ever listened to. It's one of those things I talk about, you know, these guys were not on the radio, but I got Misfits, Walk
I like it,
Among
man.
Us. They'd already recorded 2 full albums in 78 and 80, but they shelved those. And so this is the first one that was actually brought out, but they call it their 3rd album because the other 2 were released way later. There's one of the things, it's the punk, Trey, so you know you got to wait. It's 13 songs, it's 24 minutes and 38 seconds. From the opener, 20 Eyes, Glenn Danzig is on fire, Doyle's guitar, underrated Arthur Googie on drums.
Great name, too.
Great name, and I hope I pronounce it. I don't know how else you pronounce that, but maybe he goes Gogi and one of them's silent. Nike A Go-Go is so catchy. Hate Breeders, over 3 minutes. Longest track on here by far. There's a song, the closer is under a minute. Skulls and Astro Zombies. Side 2, when I looked at the listing, I'm like, this is probably going to be a little intense. But side 2 is actually held up. But side 1 is incredibly... what do you think of this?
No, man, I like, you know, usually I'm the one that shows punk.
I know, I was going to say
this love, man, but you're showing it, and it's interesting. I think Misfits these days are almost more famous just for their apparel, their logo and whatnot.
Oh, yeah, everybody's wearing that. They never heard them.
But, you know, they really do, for as a kind of a just like horror-inspired and whatnot, their images, whenever you actually listen to their music, it does have a lot of a catchiness to it.
And there's no political. The difference in this and a lot of punk, there's no political stuff. They're not going after anybody. So yeah, great point.
You know, it's almost tongue in cheek, and I mean, you have like Astro Zombies. You know,
yeah, exactly.
I do like that pick, man. What do you got closing it out?
Well, this album was actually the album of the year by NME, which really shocked me that they picked this. But Midnight Love, Marvin Gaye, his 17th and final studio album, and his most successful, selling 6 million worldwide. But I think also we know the bump. With
his death.
With your death, it just happens. First album with Columbia, he left Motown. He didn't like the way they presented his previous 2 albums that were very introspective because he's going through a lot. He's still going through a lot, but he kind of dried out. It's a long story. I won't get into all of it. But he had dried out for the most part, and so he wanted to do something a little more commercial. So Sexual Healing, obviously, the big thing off here, won 2 Grammys. His only Grammys he ever won.
Crazy.
Only 8 songs, but it's almost 47 minutes long. My Love Is Waiting Till Tomorrow is really good. It's got all kinds of different genres kind of in here. Somebody had talked about Marvin been living in Europe, was influenced by both reggae and the synthesizer work of groups like Kraftwerk. So you would not think that Kraftwerk would influence Marvin Gaye. Now, here's what I'll tell you about this album, okay? It reminds me so much of what's going on and the way it's presented. It flows from one song to the next, and there's a theme, boys and girls. It's not the theme of what's going on. There's a very sexual, sensual theme throughout these songs, right? But it very much has that sound, a lot of great horn work. It's a really good album. A lot of people have never heard it. They just heard Sexual Healing.
Well, no, man, that's getting me fired up to listen to because I actually haven't heard this.
It'll take you a minute. Like, even the opener's great, but it takes you a minute to be like, okay. But like I said, most of the songs are 5. Some of them are close to 6 minutes long. So a really good find for me.
No, man, I'm looking forward to diving into that, man. I'm learning here, man. So I like that pick, man. So I'm finishing out here. We're going Dead Kennedys. They appeared on my 1980 list. We have Plastic Surgery Disasters. Not quite as quality as their debut, but still really, really good in my estimation, man. Shows that their hard-hitting nature hasn't really let up. I think Riot's one of their best songs. And clocks around 5 minutes. Just some fantastic guitar work there by old East Bay Ray. And then you still have that sarcastic and political nature of Jello's lyrics turned up. Moon Over Marin and Forest Fire are also really strong. And I'm going to finish it out with some Judas Priest, Screaming for Vengeance. Their 8th record went double platinum. And it's also one of the coolest album covers you're going to hear, especially, or see rather, against that kind of yellow backdrop. It's really cool, man. Monster Hidden, You've Got Another Thing Coming is found one of their most popular songs even to this day. And the best track is Electric Eye. You start with like a 30-second intro song, and it goes right into this, and it's about to go down, man. Shout out Glenn Tipton and KK Dowling on guitars, man. And the great Rob Halford, one of the great vocalists in metal history, man. Yeah, he's his usual impressive self. So that's gonna, I guess, wrap up our list. We just got a handful of honorable mentions as well. Iron Maiden, Number of the Beast, Bad Brains, self-titled, Kate Bush, The Dreaming.
You love Kate Bush. I was kind of a little bit shocked she didn't make this for you.
A little synth action dad with some Simple Minds, New Gold Dream.
Before they told you not to forget about them. And then Donald Fagen, The Knife Fight, which has incredible critical acclaim when you look through all the lists of best albums of this year.
So, really, we had our 2 monsters at the top. And then, there's still, though, a lot of different genres that were represented on this list that maybe aren't necessarily the most obvious pick, because there is a lot of records that were good that it's just kind of, what am I feeling at the time?
Yeah, exactly. The 80s are trying to find their musical way, and they're going to find it pretty soon as we bump up on 83, 84, 85. That is where they're really going to. The 80s are going to become what they are going to become music-wise. Remember, I told you at the start, tell us who you think won below, and tell us your favorites. And if you'd like to support us in any way, keep the lights on around here in 2022. Check out the Patreon link below or on the end screen that is about to hit.
Well, man, I guess that'll wrap it up from us today. We will see you next week for 1983. And until next time, we will see you.